Good morning, everyone. This Monday, March the 30th, 2026. My name is Ngozi Chukwu Kemp, and I'm starting this series called Storyteller One. And it's a storytelling series about my life and about the things that has happened or transpired in my life. I started off, my mother met my father when she was going to school to the University of Buffalo, New York at the time. My father was a student at Howard University. He was attending there for mechanical engineering. My mother was general studies until she went into social work and social services. So they met in New York, Buffalo, New York, and they got married. They moved to Detroit, Michigan, where my dad went on to go on to school at Wayne State University. My mama finished at University of Michigan, and she became a one of those social workers up going up in the ranks in Detroit. And my father was he at the time he was back and forth between different um, car plants working as a mechanical engineer. I was born my first 5 years in Detroit. I spent with my mother and father before their divorce, and basically they had a good arrangement until life happens. My mother started feeling some type of way. She went to Detroit, not Detroit, Georgia, from where she's from, and she got with some sisters and brothers, and they were going to a root worker. So she went, and the man told her that my dad was trying to steal me away to Detroit, not from Detroit to Africa. And so my mother got hysterical because she was like, "Well, what's going to happen to me if they're trying to take away my daughter to Africa?" Without talking to my father and without finding out what's the real deal with him. So my mother and my aunt, they basically went back to Detroit, got all my mother's belongings, some belongings she left at a neighbor's house or a friend. Some belongings she could take, and that's how I moved to Georgia. So so when we were in Georgia, we were back and forth between homes because my mother didn't, my mother had left a nice little amount of money, a nice little messy with my aunt who is now deceased at the time, and my aunt's husband or family or whatever spent the money. So when she came down, she didn't have hardly any monies. Um, we stayed from relatives' house to relatives' house. Basically, we started off staying with my great grandmother, in the projects in Milledgeville. Then we shifted gears and went from there to a uncle and aunt. And then my mother decided they wanted to move to Augusta. So, we moved to Augusta, still the same type of situation. My mother didn't have a job. My aunt didn't have a job, not a real job anyway. And, they were basically going to see a root worker. Then they all of a sudden stopped seeing him for whatever reasons they had. And they moved back. We didn't have any money, so one of her siblings, gave her the money to move back to Miller, Georgia. So she did. So we basically lived with my grandmother for years. Now my mother, she was trying to get on as a social work, not social worker, but a substitute teacher. I would tell, I would be angry all the time because, it was hurting me. And a lot of times it would hurt me because I couldn't tell my dad the real truth, because if I did, I would be called a Judas. So at that time, I was harboring a lot of feelings, and I went without for reasons that I shouldn't have went without for. And it hurt me a lot. When Christmases came up, I didn't have it. Maybe one or two aunts would try to give me something, but rather than that, I had to look at my cousins' families being all happy and getting gifts and presents and having that family together as a union, and I felt some type of way. I'm not gonna lie. So, um, basically, my mom, um, my mom did substitute teaching. I would ask her from time to time, "Why don't you go back and get your teacher's license?" But she was against it. She didn't want to go back to school. We were here and we have a facility called Central State Hospital, whereas my mother tried to get a job and work there. She worked part-time there. But the climate here versus the climate in Detroit was totally different. So my mother didn't really get into the system well, because or adjust to the system well, because of the different climates and the environment. What I mean by that, with leadership and all. So she didn't ever get full swing into it. So she opted out to go to be a substitute teacher. Um, basically, it was like that until I graduated high school. Mom was depressed a lot. She drank a lot. A lot of times I was starving for attention. Um, so a lot of times when she was drunk, my outlet was to go find some cousins or what have you and hang out. She was a strict mother. She did not allow me to go to a lot of games. I might have went to one basketball game. I can't say that I went to any football games. If I did, I might have went to one, but I don't think I did. Um, I just hung out with family. I just hung out. I had one friend that would come when we graduated or got close to graduation. She came to the house and we would hang out and stuff to give me an outlet. I had a couple of friends that would come by and, you know, wanted to pick me up and wanted to go places. But my mom didn't want me to do nothing. She was very, very, very strict. So I didn't get a lot of outlet until I went to college. And that's part one. We'll go on to part two in a few seconds.